Hello, and welcome to Soothing Pod's Sleep Stories. My name is David, and I am going to tell you a wonderful story that will lull you into a peaceful and restful sleep. Tonight, I will be your guide on a very special adventure. It is going to be an art adventure. On this adventure, you will get to learn all about a very special artist named Frida Kahlo. But before we go on our adventure, we need to be super still, very comfortable, and completely relaxed. Are you already still? Good. Are you already comfortable? Great. Now I will help you relax. Inhale. That means breathe in very, very deeply. Then exhale. That's right, just breathe out. You did great. Let's do it one more time, but this time with a 5-second pause between the inhale and the exhale. Ready? Inhale. And exhale. You are awesome. This is a story about a girl named Frida. She was from Mexico and grew up to be a very famous artist. When she was born in Mexico City in the year 1907, over 100 years ago, her parents named her Magdalena Carmen Frida. Her last name was Kahlo. Her daddy, Wilhelm, also called Guillermo, was a German photographer. That means he got paid to take nice pictures. Her mother was named Matilda. Frida also had 2 older sisters, named Matilda and Adriana. A year after she was born, she had a little sister named Christina. Frida was born a healthy baby, but when she was about 6 years old, she got very, very sick. The sickness was called polio, and it really hurt her body. It hurt her so much that she had to stay in bed for 9 whole months. That is nearly a year. When little Frida finally got better, she could not walk very well. If she did walk, she hobbled a little, and her right leg and foot never worked normally again. Still, her daddy wanted Frida to keep being active, so that she could enjoy doing things that other kids did too. He encouraged her to play soccer, and even taught her how to swim. Other parents would probably have thought that their child was too weak and should not be playing. But Frida's daddy taught her to live a normal life despite not being able to move as well as the other kids. In school, Frida loved learning. And she also liked to wear pretty, bright, and colourful traditional clothes. The kids who went to school with Frida remembered her as being full of joy and life, and hardly ever getting sad about not being as strong as the others. Frida liked other young people who wanted to make the world a better place to live in. She liked to talk with her friends about how they could help other people and what they could do to have a better life. One day in 1925, as Frida was riding on a bus with her friend Alejandro, a terrible accident happened. The bus she was on crashed into another vehicle on the street, and Frida got very hurt. Her back was seriously hurt by the accident, and she had to go to the hospital. She stayed at the Red Cross Hospital in Mexico City for several weeks, and it must have seemed like a long time. Frida's back hurt. Her legs and body hurt, and she probably wanted to be able to get out of bed again and walk around with her friends. While she could not yet walk around, Frida still wanted to create things. She had a lot of ideas in her head, and her imagination was always busy. So, she decided to paint. Frida loved to paint beautiful things that she saw in nature. Flowers, grass, animals. And she also said that she loved to paint her own reality. That means the way she felt things really were in the world of her own. She painted a lot of self-portraits. Pictures of herself in various costumes, dresses, colorful flowers, and hair accessories. Mexican designs, motifs, and Mexican culture were also a very big part of her paintings. Do you also like to paint? Or when you get sick and have to stay in bed for a long time, what do you do so that you do not get bored? Has this ever happened to you? Do you know what I like to do? Well, just what you're doing now. Listening to stories. Whenever I cannot go out and meet with friends or do other things that I usually like to do, then listening to stories is a nice way to pass the time. Anyway, when Frida was a little girl, she probably did not dream that one day people all around the world would be telling stories about her. Would you like to hear what happened to Frida when she grew up? When Frida grew up, she married another painter. His name was Diego Rivera. Diego was already a professional artist and would travel around the world working on his commissions. Commissions are art pieces that someone has paid you to create. And Frida would often travel with her husband wherever he needed to be to paint. They went to San Francisco in California. They also went to New York City for Rivera's show at the Museum of Modern Art. When Diego was later asked to make art for the Detroit Institute of Arts, they went to Detroit. Getting to travel around the world because of her and her husband's art, Frida learned a lot about cultures, people, and different places. And wherever she went, she tried to teach other people about Mexican culture too. She thought that the best way to do that is to paint things that were dear to her at home onto her canvases. She wanted people to be able to look at one of her paintings and understand her culture, even if they could not speak her language. Frida must have met a lot of interesting people and a lot of other artists on her travels. This was a time in the world when many artists and writers were learning to express their ideas more boldly. They gathered in small groups, met in homes, and talked about these ideas. In 1938, Frida did an art show or exhibition at New York City Gallery. For this show, she created about 25 paintings. And during the show, about half of them were sold. The following year, Frida decided that she wanted to live in Paris, in France. At this time, many writers and artists, painters were in France, including the most famous of them all, Pablo Picasso. Have you heard his name before? He made a lot of paintings that are still famous today. Pablo and Frida also became friends. I can imagine them talking about art together, sharing ideas and discussing what life could be like in an artist's perfect world. The paintings that Frida painted in Paris are still exhibited there. And she made many other artist friends, including Marc Chagall and Pete Mondrian. Would you like to hear some things that Frida Kahlo said? Feet, what do I need them for if I have wings to fly? Was one of her most famous quotes. You see, she did not let her sickness or weakness stop her from doing the things she loved, like painting or dancing, or showing Mexican culture and traditions. I am sure she wished she could move faster, run farther, and do more physically. But despite the fact that her body was weak, Frida gave her own spirit room to grow. She let her heart dream big and express big ideas. And this is what she meant by wings to fly. Do you sometimes wish you could do more, build more, or move faster? You see, this is normal because we were born to learn more about the world around us. The thing is, you do not even have to travel far or leave the country to fly. If you can dream big and imagine big and talk about those ideas, you will feel as if your heart and spirit are growing and learning already. Something else she said was, nothing is absolute. Everything changes, everything moves, everything revolves, everything flies and goes away. Frida experienced a lot of sadness, loss, and pain in her life. But she always found a way to make the feelings part of what she created. Her struggles, her weak health, any problem she had. She would sit at her canvas, or lie with a canvas in her bed if she was too weak to sit. You might notice, when you look at Frida's paintings, that some of them do not look very joyful, because she suffered a lot and wanted to paint just the way she felt. The truth is that Frida's paintings were more than just self-portraits or depictions of her daily life. The paintings were actually tools for her, a kind of language. They were a way to express herself when she felt that words were not enough. She had a lot of complex and complicated ideas, memories, and things she wanted to communicate. And so, a lot of symbols are hidden in her paintings. You could say hidden messages for people to find if they knew what to look for. In some still life paintings, if you do not know that Kahlo was painting messages, you would just think that she wanted you to look at yummy fruit, colorful birds, or Mexican items. But the truth is, she was trying to paint messages about Mexico as a country, a nation, people who should be independent and free. The Mexican government asked Frida to paint portraits of important Mexican women in 1941. This was a project she started, but never finished, because that was a very tough year for her with many personal challenges. However, as an artist, she only became more popular, well-known, and did more art shows. In 1953, Kahlo did her first solo art show in Mexico. The thing is, she could not even walk at this time. She had to stay in bed. But you know what? It was such a special event that Kahlo did not want to miss out on the exhibition's opening. She arrived at the art exhibition in an ambulance, and there was a bed set up just for her so that she could still attend the event, meet people, and talk about her artwork. She sure was determined. Not even her poor health could stop her. Maybe some days you feel like you have something to say too, but you don't know how to say it, and you might even worry that nobody will listen. Do you know what you can do then? Just do what Frida did. Paint your ideas. Draw your thoughts, feelings, and give them wings. Let your feelings fly onto the paper. Draw them as little or as big or as strange as you want. Use your imagination. You might take a blank piece of paper and imagine that wonderful things can be created there. Maybe you have a dream tonight, and if it's a good dream, you want to remember it. Well, there is an idea for you. Simply draw your dream to life. Imagine the colors that could be there. Take your pencils and crayons, or maybe color markers if you like, or paint. It does not have to be very fancy. Whatever tools you have to make art with are great, even if it is just one pencil and one little idea. See what you can bring to life. Here is something else you can do the same way Frida did. Self-portraits. That means a picture of yourself, yes, like a selfie. Except it should be drawn, not taken with a camera. Set up your mirror. Make sure you can see yourself in it, and draw what you see. Copy your own reflection onto the paper and draw your own self-portrait. Maybe you want to draw the things you are wearing today. Or maybe you can imagine that you might be wearing something else. What would you put on your head? Do you like to wear hats? Do you have glasses? Do you like particular colors? Draw your self-portrait with the unique things that make you, you. Remember, nobody knows you better than you know yourself. And when you draw yourself, ask yourself this question. What is important to me? Ask yourself, what is important to me? It could be your family. It could be a particular kind of food you like to eat. It could be a friend you really like. Whatever is important to you, that is what you can draw. When you look in the mirror, notice the little details. Notice the color of your eyes, the color of your hair, the shape of your eyebrows, the length of your nose, the curves of your mouth. These are all very important details that will make your self-portrait look a lot like you if you get them right. And one more thing. Don't be afraid to take your time. Go slow. Don't rush your self-portrait. Also, don't be afraid to make mistakes. These are all steps in learning to become a better artist and learning to express yourself. It is so important that you feel comfortable with expressing yourself. It is important to know what you like or don't like. It is important to know what is important to you. And the most important thing is to know that you are unique and very special. You have special gifts and talents to use that other kids don't have. Just like Frida shared her gift of art with the world. So you can also share your gifts with others. After you have drawn your self-portrait, if you want, you can show it to a friend or to your parents. Ask them what they think. Do they recognize the face? Do the details look like your details? Maybe they will want you to draw their portrait too. And if you don't like drawing, that's perfectly okay. There are so many different ways to express yourself, not just one way. Some people express themselves by playing a sport. Other people like to dance. Others sing, and others like to write. Some people express themselves by cooking a really yummy meal. Others like to build and craft stuff to show what is important to them. Still other people like to express themselves best in the way that they dress or the way that they fix their hair. We all have different ways of expressing ourselves, and we all have different things that are important to us. These things that are important are called values. As you grow up, you may find other values that are important to you. As you grow and even change, and as your world gets bigger, you will learn more, just like Frida did. You may even travel to and get to meet other people who express themselves in different ways. Maybe someday you will come back and tell me all about the wonderful things you have learned and all the places you have been to. But for now, it is time to let all these thoughts fly up, 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 as we go deeper and deeper and deeper into dreamland. I hope you are dreaming about wonderful things, and that when you wake up, you will feel refreshed, happy, and ready for another day. Thanks for listening to my story and letting me tell you about Frida Kahlo. I'll see you again soon on Soothing Pod.